everyone. Today I'm back with another session of verbal for exams like GMAT, GRE, CAT, etc. Today we shall be discussing critical reasoning verbal. In this session I shall discuss with you the question format. The question consists of a small paragraph called argument. After that, there will be the task or the question that you are supposed to answer, and finally you will have the answers given in the form of 5 options. So let us first understand what an argument is. An argument is a small paragraph with 2 stated parts and 1 stated parts. That means a total of 3 parts. The first important part which we must identify is called the conclusion. Conclusion means the final decision or observation, advice, recommendation, general statement, generalization that the author makes. Now, if we have only the conclusion, we will not have an argument, because the author needs to also give some support for saying whatever he is saying. So that is called the evidence. It is the support or reasons or data that justify the conclusion. Now, the third one, which is not stated but which is a very important part of the argument, is called assumptions. These are unstated but implied, taken for granted, and they form a link between evidence and conclusion. So now let's take the example of a small argument. Everyone should exercise. John exercises. John is healthy. Now, first thing we have to do even before we start doing the task assigned to us is to identify the conclusion. That means to analyze the argument into its 2 stated parts, conclusion and evidence. So, the conclusion of an argument, just because the word conclusion means ending, does not necessarily be the last statement of the paragraph. It can be the first statement also. So, mostly the conclusion is either the first or the last statement of the argument. A better way, a shorter way of identifying the conclusion is check out which is the most generalized or broadest statement that applies to the bigger group in that whole argument. And another way of identifying is, even if the words are not actually there, these signal words, if you can hypothesize them, could be signals for the conclusion. Words such as hence, therefore, thus, consequently, as a result, etc. Now let's take the example of this argument and find out what the conclusion is. The argument states everyone should exercise. John exercises. John is healthy. Now, as we said, first of all, we have to identify the conclusion. Now, let us go to the first statement. Here we have everyone should exercise. And we also have the word should, which we have said is an advice. Then we come to John exercises, and the last statement is John is healthy. Now, let us see if this is the conclusion or this is the conclusion. Now, on the basis of whatever we have studied just now about the conclusion, let us apply all the criteria and see what the conclusion is. First of all, it is the first or last sentence. So, this is the first sentence. This is the last sentence. Most generalized or broadest statement. This applies to everyone. This applies only to John. So, obviously, everyone is a bigger group than John. And finally, we'll try the words hence, therefore, thus, consequently, as a result. Now, there can be a conclusion within the main conclusion. So, if we say John exercises, therefore, John is healthy. This could be a conclusion within the whole argument. But it cannot be the main conclusion. For what reason? Because John is smaller than everyone. Now, if you want to test again whether that is the conclusion or not, just put the first statement in the end. So we can say John exercises, John is healthy, Therefore, everyone should exercise. Alright, now we got the conclusion. So that means everyone should exercise is our conclusion. Whatever remains is the evidence or the support for the conclusion. So this is our evidence. Now we come to the unstated part, which is what are the assumptions, what has the author taken for granted while making this claim. So he has assumed that John exercises, therefore John is healthy. That means exercise and nothing else is the cause of John's health. And the second assumption, which leads directly to the conclusion, is John is a typical specimen or representative of everyone. What happens to John will happen to everybody. So this is the assumption. So we have seen the three parts, which is conclusion, evidence and assumption. In our next module, we will be discussing the typical questions for critical reasoning verbal. Thank you.